special guest today, Carl Shulman from Stott and Moy, talking to us about career options. Now, like as I said, happy to have an open discussion where the interns can ask you questions direct. If you got a presentation, happy to go through that. I think a couple of talking points I said to you is maybe, looking at the cover letter, resume, references, and your social media profile. And by that, I mean really your LinkedIn presence and what that demonstrates and what you see for that as a recruiter.
Yeah, absolutely. And my camera's decided to make me very dark today. There we go. Keeps flaring in and out. But no, I appreciate it. Hopefully you can all hear me. If I cut out for whatever reason, please let me know and I'll repeat it. But yeah, I mean, I've been a recruiter in the space for 5.5 years, I think now. I've actually lost count. I only planned on coming into it for a year and I can't get out of it since. So it's an interesting space to be, but you certainly learn a lot from the sort of overlooking view of the industry. And I think you get a lot of insights that hopefully I can pass on to you all and we can learn from. But, to Robert's point, cover letters are becoming a little bit redundant. I think they're still valued in certain circles. But I'm going to be honest, I don't view them, but please take that, as you will. Not everyone is me. Okay. So I think that's really, really important. So, what you have to understand is you have to make sure you're crossing all the bases. If we use a baseball analogy here, to make sure that you've got the best chance of scoring, right? So, that's resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, any website that you might have if you've done development or you have projects or stuff like that you might want to show off. They're all really, really important things, especially getting that first job. After getting the first job or second job, it starts to become less important. But that first and second job, to get up the ladder as quickly as possible, as many of you I'm sure are ambitious to do that, having as much ammunition as possible is the best way. So, cover letters are very much what we call a secondary tool. The primary tools are very much the resume and LinkedIn. Now I'm going to focus a hell of a lot on this session on LinkedIn, and I'm going to show you my profile about how I built it, just because I think that's going to add most value to you. LinkedIn is 95% of what most hiring managers now use, maybe more. So LinkedIn is going to be where most people are going to find you. And LinkedIn is such a great, social place. As Robert said, there's a lot of other social places. Clubhouse was a great one. Even Instagram and Twitter is a great place to meet people. However, LinkedIn is still the number one tool for finding your next job. And that could be connecting with hiring managers or HR managers. So I'll show you that in a second. In terms of resumes, I'm always fine if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, send me yours, happy to look and see how I can help. But really what you want is 1 or 2 pages on a resume, and you want the most relevant stuff for that job you're applying for. Now that sounds like a lot of work. However, what that means is you're going to get the best chance of response. So, for example, I would have your name, your location at the top of the resume, and then underneath, I would have, I'm looking to be in a position of security analyst or technical writer. That exact job title that you're applying for, have that in your opening things, because without damaging the industry I work for, there's a lot of recruiters that are very lazy, and they will just go out and press the F key and search security analyst, and if that doesn't come up in your resume or somewhere in your profile, they will just move on because they've got so many applications. So sometimes you have to be that deliberate and that specific around just looking to get the best response. The second thing that I would do on your resume, and I'll include this on some notes that I send to Robert to send on, is I'll put if you've graduated from college or done any types of, internships, they need to be at the top. They need to be at the next. So I'd put any sort of education next, followed by any sort of interns, work experience. Start off with the most relevant and the latest at the top, and then work your way down if you have other jobs that could be relevant. But make sure when you're doing the write-ups of what was included in them jobs, they're as relevant to the job you're applying for. So even if it's like, I worked at Starbucks weekend, you can talk about, customer service, about being prompt at work, about, dealing with things that go wrong, all these sort of things that hiring managers or HR managers will go, do you know what, that person culturally fit this organization, so let's take a risk by interviewing, and that's such a key point, is your LinkedIn and your resume and your cover letter are just a starting point. That is your introduction to someone. So you have to think about doing this as well as you can, because that might be the only thing that people see. And it's really your gate. It's really your gate, because once you open that gate, it's a lot easier to then get that job. Don't get me wrong, it's still not easy, but it's a lot easier then, because you can have a discussion with people and you can try and bond with people, and you can try and really have that art of getting to know and influencing those people that can really have the biggest effect. But you need to have that gate opener. But I see so many profiles where we put all our hobbies at the top, resumes, where we put all our hobbies at the top, and we put this great bio about ourselves, and we end up taking a whole page of everything we've achieved, when sometimes HR managers are just looking for a tick box exercise. Has this person got a degree? Has this person got had intern related experience? Just think about them sort of things that relate to the jobs, and that's what the job description allows you to compare against. So that's really, really important. So, Rob, I'm just going to see if I can share my screen here. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, at the top right, there should be an up arrow and it
can you see that?
Looks like it's coming across.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, you can see my LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
Perfect.
we can see.
Great. LinkedIn profiles. I mean, I can't imagine doing recruitment 10 years ago when there was no LinkedIn. I'm going to be honest. I mean, LinkedIn is where it's at, and as I'm sure Robert spoke to you about, networking is really where it's at. So a recruiter is not necessarily going to get you your first job, maybe not your second job, maybe not your third job. So the way you do it is through networking, and LinkedIn is a networking site. So often people mistake LinkedIn for a job site. It's really not. It's a networking site. It has a lot of different functions. So it's great for business development. It's great for networking. It's great for meeting new people. It has a lot of different benefits that can really add to it. So really what you want to do is have an optimized LinkedIn page. Now, there'd be certain things you can already tell about my LinkedIn page that might be different to yours. Now, I haven't checked all yours, so you can say I'm wrong, which is fine. But very clearly, like couple of bits in my thing, I have these hashtags, cyber jobs, cyber security, cyber insurance, instant response, all the things that I'm often talking about. Now, also what we have in here, I'm just going to go on this, hopefully this doesn't give anywhere any of my personal details, is the other thing
if it does, we'll cut it out.
Yeah, great. The other thing you'll notice, I have a custom URL, right? So you can see it just on the right hand side up here, and hopefully tell me if you can't see that, by the way. Can you see my custom URL?
No, has it opened up on another page, another window?
Yeah, 1 second. It has. Yeah, 1 second. Let me do this. You might see yourselves for a second. Can you see yourselves? Page now. You see this page that I'm on now?
Nope.
Not yet. So when you share, you might have a couple of options to share: one screen, two screens, or a specific application.
Yeah, if you will share full screen, then we can
try that.
see.
Is that better?
Yeah. Yep.
Great. So yeah, so you can see my URL here on the right hand side. So I just put something very generic like cybersecurity. However, a lot of people just have their name and loads of numbers. And what that means is it doesn't optimize for search engines. So if someone's searching for your name, someone's searching for, you know, someone who does it. So you might put John Adams, you know, security analyst or whatever job you're looking for. And then that will optimize you in terms of when people are searching for that sort of job set, you will more likely come to the very top of that list. So they're more likely to see you first, which again, if we're dealing with hiring managers, HR managers, recruiters that are very rushed, under pressure in their job, they're going to look for quick wins, for low hanging fruit, as we say. So that's really important. So I'm just going to flip back a second. Do it this way. Any questions on that part so far?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, you know, on your profile, because I do see it. It's got a, you know, I think 8 numbers afterwards, right? So you'll recommend you can edit that, change it, and yeah, that's something I never knew about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's something very simple, but something that's very effective at the same point. So yeah, it's you know, it's however you want to use it, but I do recommend it. It allows people to search you a lot better. So the next thing is you want to turn here. You see creator mode is on. So this allows you to, one, have access to a few nice little tools that I don't really use, but LinkedIn have added. But also it showcases and promotes your content. So anytime you're putting out stuff, my content then flares up. Now I'm giving away a couple of my little secrets here, but a lot of people now do this. So it's still competitive, but it might give you an advantage over one of your peers. So that's where it can become quite advantageous. So what it allows you to do is put these hashtags in. So if I'm searching up here and I'm searching, oh, I wonder what's going on, let's look at cyber jobs, then any of the hashtags would come up in posts. That would be included in posts. So my profile would then come up. So if someone's looking for a cyber job and they put that in the search bar, I'm more likely to come up first. So again, you could put security analyst, sales leader, cyber sales, whatever you want to do next in your career, you could put that in. You're more likely to be seen again. And this is what it's all about. It's all about just being seen, that extra 1%. So that's really, really important on that. Any questions on that? No? Perfect. So featured is another good thing. So, you know, in here, I have all the interviews I've done, clearly all the different haircuts I've had through the years. But you know, what's great about here is any sort of work that you've done, whether it's articles, videos, you can even put documents in here. It allows you to put in a lot of different stuff in this thing. You can put links in here. You know, you could put newsletter, you could write articles on here, put pictures on there, whatever you need to do. Anything you've done that you want to showcase, it's a great place to showcase it here. Because it's, again, I get a lot of comments. Hey, I clicked on your profile, saw your video, I watched your video. Can we talk? You know, can we get to know each other? You know, very easy things to do. Obviously, you know, activity. So the more you post, the more you're going to be seen. Very, very simple. Content is king. So you can comment on other people's stuff. You can, you know, you can put out your own stuff. You can repost stuff. You could repost other articles. You know, anything that you can do just to be seen, even if it's just once a day, once a week. less than once a week I wouldn't recommend, because you just won't be picked up in the traffic. But if you start posting consistently and stuff, you'll see some of the interactions. 106 likes, 121 comments, 33 likes, 40 likes, 3 comments. Like, things vary depending on when you post. I just wouldn't worry about too much of that. I'm still trying to figure that out. That's a lot of trial and error. But what I would say is just post consistently. That's the main thing. And post stuff where it's going to get interaction with people, right? It's going to be like, for you, if you want to be a security analyst, you might post about instant response or, SOC related content or whatever it is. If you want to be a cyber reporter, you might report about news, like the latest news headlines coming out, as an example. And people are just going to follow because people want this stuff. People eat up content. So on to the next bit. So about. Now I cheat a lot with my about because I put so many keywords in, and I've rewrote this number of times. But I put a lot of keywords in, so I feature in more searches. The specialties down here is a great example, right? Every keyword you can probably think of in security is in there. Now, that's not as advantageous for you, but you could take this off your resume if you wrote a small about me bit, on your resume, or however you want to do it. But really, this is a great chance to get a little snippet of you over, what your mission is, what you're motivated by, the reason you're in cybersecurity, or the reason you want to be in this sector, what you're looking for. Again, I see a lot of people nowadays write what you're looking for just under your name, right? In your headline, as it's called. I'm looking for a security analyst position, as an example. That can be a great thing. But you can really get yourself, you've got pretty much unlimited characters, as you can see. I wrote a lot in here. But you just get an idea of a person, and that's what it's about. When you're building a career, it's all about storytelling, simply as. So you want to make sure that throughout the LinkedIn profile, someone comes away and goes, I get who that person is. I know how they would fit into this firm. I know what value they can bring. And that's what you have to think about. Am I answering them questions where a hiring manager, a HR manager, or a recruitment manager comes away and goes, yeah, that person is someone we need to contact or know, or whatever the objective is. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I do have a question about your what you talked about before. You said content is king. And first of all, I do want to thank you for speaking with us, Carl. It really means a lot to all of us that you're taking the time out of your day to speak with all of us. But wrapping back to my question, you said content is king. In your opinion, what gets the most interactions, right? You said you want to strive for that, right? So what, in your opinion, what is that?
So I think there's a lot of what we call clickbait content. And if you think about the Daily Mail or Fox News, they're probably obviously the classic of doing that. And I'm not saying that you go down that line, but there is some content that will get people looking a little bit more. And often that's, unfortunately, either very opinionated content or negative content. So I'm not a big fan of promoting that. That's not what I do. I try and do thought-provoking stuff, but I understand that that's not the quickest way of getting, people looking at your profiles. Often right now, we can all name it, right? The work from home content gets a lot of interactions. Breaches get a lot of interactions. Analysis of breaches gets a lot of interactions. Any sort of aggregation of news gets a lot of interactions, as an example. So, I think it's a little bit of trial and error. Find out what works, find out how to interact in people, find out what hashtags to use when you post. All these things take a little bit of time and a little bit of playing with. And like I said, feel free to, look at my profile anytime and see if there's any sort of inspiration you get from there. And there's plenty of other good people you will find that you should follow on LinkedIn in the security domain who also have some very good content. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, Carl. Thank you.
So, and by the way, the about me, there's a lot of examples. If you Google about what to write in an about me place on LinkedIn, they will bring up loads of templates and examples. So if you ever get stuck, just do that, like absolutely fine. But try and be as authentic as possible, because I think authenticity is the value of human beings in current times. So that's what everyone's looking for. That's the type of personality that fits in terms of multicultural organizations. So that's what you need to seek for.
How do you differentiate like just the fluff or adding information that is unnecessary versus adding the information that will get that point across, right? Like, I don't think you're gonna put, I like to watch, this is my favorite Netflix show, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, don't put that. I just think, yeah, you're right. There's a lot of fluff out there, and I try and avoid that. I think keeping it value and mission based shows a lot to people. So, like, for example, here I put a sentence that I've driven towards for a long while, which is, it's my goal to impact 3,000 people across 300 companies for the benefit of future generations, right? So very clearly people know that I'm mission orientated, I'm values based, I'm people first. There's a lot of things that you can get out. And what I do is I will list all my values. So who am I as a person, and how do I get that out? How do I want to be perceived by a hiring team culturally that I can put in here? So, like, I'm mission orientated. I understand there's a war for cyber talent. I want to help my clients. I want to outbeat my competition. But also, I want to do it for the benefit of people and the future generations, because that's what cyber is. Cyber and climate change are two of the most mission-driven industries you can work in by far, because you're protecting national security, you are helping individuals, like your families and stuff, who are targets from phishing attempts and other compromises. So it makes it very easy to come across in a mission-orientated manner, and that's what people want. People don't necessarily want, they all say they want this 5 years experience people, but they just want people that they can trust, that they have confidence in, that are doing it for the right reasons, that are going to stay here for a long time, driven and ambitious, and show autonomy. So they're all the things that people are actually looking for. So it's just about getting that over in your profile. And yeah, putting your favorite Netflix show or that you love Kardashians just does not help in that scenario as much as you and I probably do. But it's it just is what it is. I just think get to the point and show emotion in what you believe in.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
A follow up from that: if you do apply for a job, would you recommend reaching out to the recruiter in a week's time, just to go, hi, this is such and such, I applied for this job, I really love the company, I'd just like to know where I am on the process? Is that a recommendation? Do you see that often?
100%. So I say you get most jobs with the follow-up, right? So the power of the follow-up, as I call it, right? So you should be following up 3 days later, 5 days later, 1 week later, whatever it is, and you should do it 3 or 4 times. We talk quite often about the 7 points of contact, and you see this on the sales side as well as recruitment side. But if you want that job, you're probably going to have to contact 7 times to really build a relationship with that person. And that could be a relationship with the company, that could be the individual. So you could have to contact 7 different people, maybe it's 3 different people, 2 or 3 times. It's all these different things to get it over the line, because if you're not doing it, someone else is. And I think that's really key to getting a job. I would say just applying is not enough, because I can guarantee 250 people have applied for that position. So how do you stand out? You stand out in your follow-up. That's the next part. So getting found on LinkedIn is just the first part. That's the first part. Okay, great. They fit that criteria. Now you go into a short list of names, and then they choose who they want to reach out to, or who they want to interview, or whatever the next step is. Well, how do you get that? Well, you've got to make sure you're in that next step. So the only way you do that is through follow-up, through communication. So you have to follow up with the recruitment, with the recruiter, with the hiring managers. Can you refer me in? Oh, I've applied for this position. How best can I help you? Like, how best can I, do to get an interview? What do I need to tell you that's going to convince you to, that's going to convince you to get me the job, or whatever it is, whatever you need to ask. Never be afraid to ask. Never be afraid to do follow-ups, because everyone always like, well, I don't want to seem like I'm pestering or pushy. I've never thought that. If you're calling me every day, probably a little bit more. But like, if you're following up every 2 or 3 days, and I don't mean this in any other way than the context, but I receive, over 100 emails a day. There is a high chance, very high chance, that 2 to 5 of them emails is going to slip through. Like, I'm just going to miss. It's going to enter my junk folder. It could end, you don't know where it's going to go. So you need to make sure that it's got there. They've seen it. They're going to look again, stuff like that. It's really, really important. So yeah, to your question, Robert, all about the follow-up. I'm a big believer in, you have to go and get what you want.
All right. I think, Carl, we've got 8 very hungry summer interns looking for full-time employment. Yeah, no, they're really going to take this in, absorb it, and I'm sure you'll have 8 new resumes coming in very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always here, and feel free to look through my profile. Everything is here. Everything that you could want, but just get used to building your profile, edit the profile. And it has, although they've taken it off mine, I think now, but it tells you how good your profile is. Like, is it complete? Like stuff like that. For whatever reason, it's not showing up on mine now. But it does help you, and I'm always happy, like I said, to review resumes, give any final advice, or review LinkedIn profiles to help.
Perfect. So I had a question. So how are you able to get the tags under your name, like the hashtags?
Yeah, so that's in the content creator. So you switch on content creator, and when you do that on your LinkedIn profile, I can't tell you where it is. I can't remember where it is, but I think if you click on your profile,
and just hit edit, yeah, you'll see it under mine as well, Visual. So happy to walk you through that.
All right, thank you.
Adrian, you had a question.
Yes. So you did talk about resumes and cover letters at the beginning. You did say cover letters are becoming less and less valuable. As far as resumes go, you did say make it as relevant as you can, and you said at the top to include education, interns, and then any relevant experience. What are, in your opinion, in the past 5 years, what are some of the 3 major things that stand out, right, in a resume, right? You said name is no location, very important. Education, intern, like what would you say that stands out?
Yeah, so I think at the top I would have name, location, and just confirming work authorization. They're always key. Because them 3 answer the initial questions that a HR person's going to have. Then after that, I would always have like education or anything else. I think this changes as you go later in your career. The education becomes near the bottom, becomes less of a focus. But I think for entry or early stage career, you need your education and your certifications are pretty important for tick box exercises. I don't fully agree with it, but I think it just helps in terms of that. So I would put education first, then I'd put any internships and as cyber as specific as you can, or any work experience that you have. And under that, I'd put my certifications and any writings I've had, publications, pieces of work, whatever that is underneath. And then obviously, anything else that you think could be relevant for that job, whether it's, I don't know, like any other pieces of writing that you might have done, or anything that's going to really help to get over your skill set is great. Obviously at the top, you know, you're still going to need your contact details because they need to be able to reach you. Can't forget that part. But and then, you know, you can either do at the bottom, depending on how much space you have, you can either put a couple of recommendations like referrals at the bottom, or you can just put available at request, like whatever you feel comfortable with. Obviously ask anyone's permission if you're going to put a referral recommendation on. But really it's trying to do it in one page or two where you just get out all the key information. And to your actual question, it's the keywords that are the crucial part, because most recruiters and most HR people and hiring managers don't have the time to sit there and read every line. So it's the keywords that are, you know, so if you've used tools like Qualys or you've used Python or whatever it is, like get that in there. Like even if you're intermediate skill set or beginner skill set, put that. I've used Python at a beginner level, or like whatever it is. Like, you know, just make sure you're getting your key responses, your key skill sets in every internship or every job that you've had. And even sometimes I encourage people to have a small box towards the bottom or towards the top, depending on where you think it should fit in terms of the priority of that role that you're applying for, and actually have I have Python 1 or 2, like 2 years experience, intermediate level. Like I've used, you know, Microsoft Word 10 years, you know, advanced level, like just very simple stuff where people read it and go, okay, I get where this person sits. That's what we need, or that's not what we need, or whatever the answer is, because it's better to be honest up front than it is to get all the way through the process, have everyone's hope is lifted up, and then they go, oh, we didn't realize you don't have this skill set, or whatever else, because it wastes a lot of people's time.
Great question, Adrian. Before we jump on to your question from Ashley, what are some taboos, and is having a QR code in the header a taboo, or having a profile picture of yourself? Some of the common things you see and you just like, next, spelling mistakes, grammar.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, spelling mistakes, absolutely. Like spelling mistakes, bad grammar. And by the way, I'm really bad at grammar sometimes, so we all make mistakes. I'm often caught out on LinkedIn for making that mistake where I'm rushing comments or whatever. There's a great tool called Grammarly. Install it onto your computer. I use it all the time to get myself out of trouble. It just brings up recommendations continuously on my resume to improve. So I make sure, and it also does it if you install it into Chrome. It also does it on any of your comments, like LinkedIn page, whatever else. I still rush too much and still make mistakes, but it does alert me to them at least. But yeah, grammar and spelling, big one, because a lot of the roles in cyber as a whole, reporting and doing presentations is just part of the job. So people are often looking for that. Like communication is a very big thing, no matter if you're a security analyst that's working internal to a consultant working in the Big Four. So that's really the biggest one. The second one is people will check your social media. These are cyber people. They will be able to find any social media accounts you have on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Like that is part of due diligence. So if you've been abusing people, swearing on there, like people would take a view of it. Like if you've been doing some silly stuff, if we all think about the Kevin Hart when he got banned from the Oscars from a tweet 7-8 years ago, like these sort of things do come up. So just make sure that all your profiles are clean, as they can be. Even if you have to go back and delete stuff you now regret, like I recommend going to do that, because that is part of due diligence in the process. And they may not necessarily tell you they do that due diligence, but I know a lot of them do. Profile pictures, now, I don't recommend that. And I'm only mentioning this because you brought it up, Robert, but I don't recommend it because sometimes companies prefer blind screens. And what I mean by that is some hiring managers, unfortunately, still have biases, right? And as much as we are trying to remove race and gender as a bias, unfortunately, we can't control everyone, and some people still have that. So I don't recommend putting it in, because if you ever come into a hiring manager that has that bias, they're going to rule you out by seeing that. And like I said, I'm 100% against that, and we've been doing a lot of initiatives at Stott and May to go against that. But unfortunately, you know, you want to take in as much as you can. Now, the flip side of that is if you run into a company that cares about diversity, seeing your profile, you know, in that respect may also help you. So, you know, I'm not saying it is one, you know, it rules the world, but, you know, I think it's just the better place to be in that respect. I do think, Robert, to your point, that some people don't like pictures, and I have no idea why, still to this day. But I've run into a lot of hiring managers that are like, yeah, I don't really like the picture on top of the resume. And I'm like, okay, just move on. Like, that's a petty point you're making, but yeah, it does happen. Outside of that, like I said, for me, grammar and spelling is a big one. Often see that mistake. Lying about dates or lying about roles is another big one. And then, as I said, like, just, you know, just think about it before you post on all your media, on anything that can be public information.
Great advice. All right, this will have to be the last question. And over to Ashley.
Yeah, I just had two questions. So in the cyber and tech world, but especially in cyber, what I see often when it comes to jobs is, you know, it'll say entry level, but it's asking for something like 3 to 5 years of experience.
Yeah.
What do you recommend for, you know, people in that entry level just graduating? How do you combat that? Especially, you know, you may be doing internships, but how do you combat that? And then my second question is, well, I'll let you answer the first question and then ask the second one.
The first question is the best question. It sucks, right? Like, there is zero things that you can do to control that. Now, what we're focused on is better education. Like, you have to educate. We have to educate hiring managers. We have to do better as an industry. Like, we have talent shortages because of stuff like this, because we don't know how to train best, because we don't know how to write job descriptions, because HR and talent don't understand what the security team needs, and security team do not know how to communicate with HR and talent. These are all issues that you can't control, so you've got to do the best you can. And LinkedIn, reaching out to people, pushing for references and referrals are the 3 best ways that you can do it. So firstly, using LinkedIn, reach out to that hiring manager, reach out to people, right? So LinkedIn allows you to add 100 people a week, right? 100 people a week. If you're not using that, you're wasting your own time. Like, simple. Because you can add 100 people and you can send a simple note. Hey, would love to get you know, one piece of advice that you could give me about starting a career in cybersecurity. You're probably going to get 90% responses. Bang, you're into a conversation, very simply. Second thing, push for references and referrals. So what I mean by that is people like Robert giving you like a write-up, you know, that you can put on your LinkedIn profile, that you can promote, or Robert can write on your LinkedIn profile. You know, even I'm happy, you know, send me a request and I'll write a little snippet on today on what we spoke about. Like, I'm fine to do that. Like, you know, don't be afraid to ask. But also referrals. Companies invest in referral schemes. So when people refer people in for jobs, that person gets paid a lot of money. So like, people are willing to do this. It's not like they're doing it as a favor for you, but you've got to get to know them first, to start building them relationships today, to then get that benefit of the referral in a month's time, 3 months time, 6 months time. Everything is a blend of short-term to long-term benefits. And that's how you have to look at everything. The final part is do what you can control. Write a great LinkedIn profile. Get out there, get in people's faces, post, you know, do everything you can to mitigate that. You know, like, you just got to be seen, and you're gonna be seen better than your peers. And than anyone else that's looking for it. You can't control that a job description says 5 years. You can just control what you can do to try and get around that, or find a company that is in a better position to hire you today. Because all companies can't hire junior people. Some people can't take the risk. Some people don't have the leadership that understand how to train them people, right? So there are certain situations where actually it doesn't make sense from a threat landscape, from a CISO perspective, that makes sense to hire a junior person.
Yeah, and don't forget to join a local club. You know, there's so many local clubs and meetup groups really get you out there as well.
Perfect. Thank you for answering that. My second question really quickly is, how important are certifications? You know, obviously in cyber, we have a lot of certifications. And then also, how do you determine the credibility? I mean, there's so many courses on Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, Google. How do you determine what are the right ones and credible ones to take?
Yeah, so you're on fire, because that's another great question, honestly. The certs are a complete waste of time till a company needs them, right? That's my honest truth, right? So what I mean by that is very few certs add value. They just charge you for money, right? So and I'm very much on the fence with certifications. Like, I've done a lot of certifications in my time. Some are useful, some are not. The ones where I found the most useful is either give me hands-on experience, like this, exactly what you're having here. There is nothing better. There is no certification that provides you what an internship or any sort of work experience provides you. Simply as that. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I find any good certs allow you to do is meet people. So if it puts you into a community of people, that can add real value. Because if you can meet everyone, or they have alumni or whatever it is they've created around their certifications, where that adds extra value to you, that has a lot of value. To answer your question, there is a lot of good content on what is the best certification. So I suggest you looking on YouTube. I think Cybery and InfoSec do some good content. I actually contributed to both of them. I think the InfoSec, I think there's an InfoSec video on my page that you can probably get to, and that will help you get to some others. But yeah, InfoSec and Cybery have some good content on what certifications is the most recommended by companies. And there's a lot of data about who's going to be recommended. However, you won't qualify for them all. To just find the ones that are in your price range and can qualify if that's what you want to do. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it does add to your credibility and does add to the tick box exercises that we've been talking about. So I'm not saying it's a complete waste of time, but I think you need to understand that it's not going to lead you to a job. Internships and work experience, 90% more going to lead you to a job than a certification is. But it can help with tick box, it can help with credibility. But more importantly, if it can help you to meet a community, that's where I think certifications are then no-brainers.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thank you so much.
Great questions, Ashley. Look,
Is there one more
we are
question?
running late. We're running a couple of late. Arjun, I want to keep on going. We could talk about this all night. But Cole, do you have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, go on. I've got like 13 more minutes. My wife might come and find me at one point, but I'm hiding in the basement for this reason.
All right, over to Arjun.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, but I will only do the two that I think are important for me. So the first one is, when we write about the experience that we had, should we write the achievement that we did on the job that we had, or what we did during that experience?
So, yeah, good question. So I think firstly, write about what you achieved. Like, so what you did might be very basic, right? Like, it might be that I logged on every day, I wrote an article, I, did this research. Like, that doesn't really get me to added value. This is what I mean. You have to link it to a job. So whatever, let's say a security analyst, right? I'm going to keep very basic, right? Because that's an entry level job. right? A security analyst will be taking logs, they'll be doing reports, they'll be doing stuff like that. So if you can bring that out and say, I wrote 17 reports in 10 days and had to report that back to the leadership, had to report that back to a CISO, a security director, and a CIO, as a very basic example. That is a bigger explanation and get you to a point where people understand, okay, he can report to leadership, tick. He has good leadership and communication skills, tick. Good writing skills, tick. So you have to think about every sentence that you write in there. Does it add value to a hiring team that's going to hire you? Does it add value to the next job you want? Because if it doesn't, if it's just fluffy stuff, take it out. Like if it says I turned up on time 10 times in a row, like no one cares about that because that just doesn't matter, right? So you've got to focus it on the achievements that link to the next job you want, and it's going to please a hiring manager or whoever's going to be your next boss. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, that's a very nice answer. So the second one is because I'm from North Macedonia in Western Balkan. So I tried to get a remote job in US. So it's very hard to get it because I think they usually ask for the work authorizations and also the visa thing. So any suggestion, what should I do? How should I apply on these kind of jobs?
Yeah, so 33% of my time is being an immigration lawyer, because I spend most of my time trying to, there's a lot of that, and there's a big push right now on the Biden administration to open up H-1Bs and increase the amount of that, because we can't, if you look at, and I've done some studies on this myself, the talent shortage and the breach responsibility is very, very near a line now, where we're in a bad position that if the talent shortage keeps increasing, the breaches will just keep increasing. So there is a big push internally. Obviously, we have some issues in the US, speaking someone who's just come from a country that just did Brexit, right? So I understand the issue around opinions over immigration and stuff like that. So this won't get solved overnight. However, I think the easiest way for you to get around that is stay where you are and work for a US business where you are, or move to a European country, or however you can move freely right now to get a job. So for example, there's a client I have called Reversing Labs who are in Croatia, right? So, but they're a US business. So there's a chance that eventually they will move people over. Goldman Sachs, one of my former clients, have a big operation in Poland, and they've moved some of the highly talented leaders over to the US on an L1 or L2 visa, right? L1 and L2s are what we see as company transfer visas. So you can after a year of working in that company in that country, you can transfer to the US and work. The other options, like I said, are H-1Bs, complete lottery system, and then there's two other visa types that are more for leadership. So.
Yeah, and I'm on one of them too, guys. So I'm on what's known as an E3 visa. It's a professional relationship from Australia and the United States.
Yeah, so I'm on an E2, which is a UK, US visa. Yeah, so you're talking to two people that are on visas. So any questions you want to know about visas, I feel pretty confident that I've been there and done it. But my suggestion would find a US company somewhere where you can currently move freely, where you're going to be willing to start, even if it's in Macedonia or any of the nearby countries. Work really well, really hard, prove your point there, and then get that intercompany transfer. Intercompany transfers right now are a lot easier than going into the lottery systems or any systems right now. And you just want to give yourself the best chance, right? And that's the easiest way to do it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
Carl, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the summer or Cyber News Live summer interns of 2022 for giving us your time just to talk about this, right? It's a amazing discussion, and everyone stayed on for the whole period. So yeah, well done. Thank you. I'm sure we'll all be in touch again. And guys, a quick round of applause, and we'll shut down the meeting quickly. And I've got another meeting with the CSIRO in Australia. So again, Cal, thank you, and everyone, thanks.
Thanks. Have a great one.
Thank you, Carl.
That was amazing. That was incredible,
you.
guys.
Thank you, Carl.
It was great.
That was bombs all night long. So hope you guys took lots and lots of notes. That was incredible. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.